This video is a tutorial on the survey, how to read a survey, how to identify encroachments, and where to find encroachment agreements if they exist, and the process involved with getting the encroachment agreements. We're going to start off by talking about the survey itself, and there are two parts to a survey. The first part is the diagram or the boundary survey, which shows you the boundary lines of the property. So you've got here lot 42, and you've got the actual map of the lot, which is also considered a parcel. As we go through the survey and other parts of like encroachment agreements and things like that, you might see two different types of numbers referenced, and I want to point it out right now because it will get confusing. For whatever reason, sometimes surveyors like to use lot numbers versus parcel numbers, but they're one and the same. If you notice here, this surveyor has lot numbers mapped out here on the survey, and they're also considered parcels. So maybe back in the beginning of time or whatever, they called them lots, and then they started calling them parcels. I'm not really sure exactly, but sometimes you will notice that a surveyor will use the actual parcel number, and then in some cases they will use the lot number. So as we go through this, I'm going to show you that there are some references in some of the old documentation that refer to parcel number, and then you might also see the same parcel referred to as a lot number, and they could be completely different from each other. In this case, they're sort of similar, so you'll see that as we go through the paperwork. But this particular surveyor decided to use lot number, so you don't see any parcel numbers here at all. However, when we go and we look at a tax map, a plat map, you can identify the parcel number. Parcel number is really important when you are looking up something under the TMK, like Real List. If you need to go to Real List to find something, like we may end up having to do like an encroachment agreement with the neighbor, you won't be able to find the neighbor by using lot number. You would only be able to find the neighbor using the parcel number. And the only way that you can find the parcel number is by going to the plat map and then pulling up the information on Real List, which we will do later in this session. Okay, so starting off here, you've noticed that you've got lot numbers, you've got the pink outline here, which is the surveyor surveying the actual subject property. And every time you hear the word subject property or you see the word subject property, we're talking about the property in question, which is this parcel right here. Some of the surveys do draw in the improvements, which you see a pool here, and you actually see the house part here, which is very helpful. If you don't use, or if you're using a surveyor that doesn't use this, it might be a little bit difficult to see where the property is with relation to the boundaries. But you look at the top here, you've got the boundary survey, you've got the different parcels that surround it, and then you've got the street. So you see how it says 69 Uwiki Circle? This is the actual street. And then if you're looking face onto the property, you've got the property on the left and the property on the right. Okay, and on some surveyors will do it differently. This is a little bit more of a sophisticated survey. Some are a little bit more generic. It'll just have a nice little, map there with all this. But you probably learned in your real estate school about true north and that sort of thing. I really don't pay a lot of attention to that too much unless they're pulling in the summary part, they're talking about that section. So that's again is the diagram. Now we're going to look at the second page. Okay, this is the second page of the surveyor's report. This is the summary portion of the survey. This is where the surveyor will explain and pretty much show you what is encroaching and explain the boundaries. So we start off with the letter A. You look at that and you see CMU wall is located on subject property. What you're looking for is anything that says things like projects into or encroaches onto or is inside of or something like that, where it's you want it to say is located on the subject property or is inside the subject property, something like that. Anything that calls out a number, like this next one here where it says wood fence from lot 31 projects zero point 0.9 into subject property. This is what you're looking for. Anything with numbers in it like this and the word project, because that's telling you that the surveyor is calling out something that is unusual that he needs to make a note of on the survey. So, for example, this wood fence from lot 31 projects point 0.9 into subject property. If you see anything point 0.5 and over, that is considered an encroachment. If it's point 0.5 and under, it's technically within the allowable, what they call de minimis, which is the allowable uh, encroachment into somebody's property. They have to do that because not everything is absolutely precise. So they have to allow for some sort of infraction or discrepancy in where a wall or a fence could possibly be into another party's parcel. So 6 inches is the allowable amount of space that you could be encroaching into your neighbor, or your neighbor can be encroaching into you. So 0.5 is half a foot, and that's why we say 6 inches. So 6 inches is half a foot. So anything over 0.5, which most of the time you'll see a surveyor use the point system here. Anything over 0.5 would be considered an encroachment, and you would want to just go ahead and highlight that, because after you highlight it, then there's a process in going to see if there's anything we can do to remedy this encroachment, because part of your contract says that you either have to you have a certain period of time to either cure the encroachment or get encroachment agreements, or whatever the situation is. You have a certain period of time to do that. So what we're doing here is we've got a copy of our survey report, and we're going to need to go through the whole thing and identify where there are encroachments, and then the next step is, what do we do about the encroachments that we found? So if you look here, item B is an encroachment, and then item C, 49.2 linear feet of vinyl fence, is located at a maximum of 0.8 into lot 41. You can kind of tell right now that there is an encroachment because it's over 0.5, so we would highlight that. And then vinyl fence from lot 41 projects into subject properties. Again, you got a 1 point, so that's a foot. That's kind of a big encroachment there. And don't worry about this part right yet. I'm going to talk to you about that in a couple of minutes. Then we go down to E, where it says 1.2 linear feet of the rock wall projects, again projecting 0.4 into Niewiki Circle right of way. This is within the allowable de minimis, and although it is projecting into a city and county right of way, you're good on this one. You don't need to worry about this. This is why this is a circle or box in here, and this is not. So we go to F and we read that, and again it says 1.2 linear feet of rock wall projects 0.2 into Niewiki Circle, and that again is fine because you're within the de minimis. And then we come down to G. So we look here, 1.2 linear feet of rock wall projects 0.7, so 0.7 is over 0.5, so we would highlight that one. And then H, 1.2 linear feet of the rock wall projects 0.6, so it's 1 over the 5, so we need to highlight that one. I says vinyl fence is located on lot 43, which is fine. As long as it says on lot, then you know that the surveyor is not calling this out to be an encroachment. Chain link fence is located on the subject property. That's fine too. Wood fence from lot 43 projects 0.3 into subject property. That again is within the allowable de minimis. So I've only circled or squared off here what is actually encroaching and what we need to deal with. So now that we know that we are encroaching, or we have encroachments, now we got to figure out how to, what are we going to do about these things? So one of the things that you do if you're representing a seller is, when you take a listing, you want to order a title report. If you order a title report right off the bat, you can find out if there are any encroachments. Sometimes when it had sold before, they may have had encroachment agreements done, and those would run with the land, and that would be something that you want to try to find out when you're taking a listing. Sometimes if you're working with the buyer and the seller side didn't do that, once you get the title report, you can see if there's any recorded encroachment agreements. That will help a lot in clearing up a lot of these things. So as you notice here, I have made notes here where I'm going to go over to the title report and show you how I found this, but letter C here actually does have a recorded encroachment agreement on file. Item D has a recorded encroachment agreement on file. Item B does not. So you're wondering, how did I find this out? So the next step is I go to my title report, which I'm going to see if I can find that. Go down here to my title report. And this is an older public title report, and they all look very different. So each title report, title company has a different way of doing their title reports. But the one thing you're going to be looking for, and again, we'll have a class on how to read title reports, but the one thing that you're looking for with going through this title report is looking for any kind of exemptions. Oh gosh, am I saying that wrong? Exceptions, I'm sorry. Anyway, so we're going to look down here where it says exceptions, and you'll see here where it has agreement, encroachment, and license, and then you've got agreement, encroachment, and then you've got another agreement and encroachment. This is the title report for this particular property. So when I'm going through this, I'm going to look at the agreements here, and I'm going to see down here where it notates a document number. This is when I tell escrow to please provide you with the document number, and then you give them the document number, and then you want them all. You want to go ahead and get all of them. Now, when I did this research the first time, I found that this first encroachment agreement no longer exists. So as you see here, I have old agreement for wood fence. When we kind of go into the actual agreement, you'll see what I'm talking about. The two encroachment agreements that I am looking for are this one here, which covers one of those encroachments on the survey, and then the second one covers this another encroachment on the survey. So if we go back to that survey, okay, so here's our survey, and you notice here I have encroachment agreement doc number 201109-464, and if we go to our title report, see on next page here, we've got 2011094064. So I've kind of made some notes here so you can kind of understand here. But now what we want to do is we actually want to look at this document, because what we're doing is we need to decipher what this document covers, what this encroachment agreement covers. Because when you first look at this, you're not going to understand which one of these encroachment agreements covers which encroachment. So we've got two encroachments that we need to figure out if we've got recorded encroachment agreements for. Now that you've looked at your title report, now you know that you have agreements on file. Now we need to go and actually look at those documents. Okay, so we've got our doc number 2011094064. So we've got item C, which is C on the survey, lot 42, and I also want you to remember that we're dealing with a parcel 72, encroaches onto lot 41, parcel 71. So now what we want to do is we want to take a look at our survey again, so we can see again where lot 42, parcel 72 encroaches onto lot 41. So let's go to our survey. Okay, so we're back on our survey, and I want you to notice that we're on item C, and if you see this pink line here, this is the boundary line. And if you see these small dashes here, that is the wall that is on lot 41 that's encroaching from lot 42. So lot 42 has a wall here that has been built, but it has gone beyond the boundary line. So anything beyond that boundary line is encroaching onto this lot right here. So this is the encroachment that we're dealing with item C on the survey. So now we go back to our title report and show you how we can double check on the title report, on the encroachment agreement that is recorded, how this all plays out. Okay, so we've got our recorded encroachment agreement here. Sorry, I'm going to pull that up a little bit. And then we have here where it says the names of the owners, and we've got Clayton Ichikawa and Gail Ichikawa, homeowner, and we've got Kirk Stephen Christman and Carrie Sue Christman, which is the adjacent property owner. So see how I remember how I told you that maybe there might be some places where you won't see the word lot, you'll see a tax map key number, and I don't believe anywhere in here it refers to lot number. So you might get confused when you got here. So that's why I'm pointing it out to you that now we're dealing with the tax map key number 72. So remember how I had at the top here, I wrote down lot 42 is parcel 72. So when we were on our survey, we saw lot 42. It didn't have a parcel number, but now we're dealing with an encroachment agreement that does. So lot 42 is the same thing as parcel 72. So now we know that we've got the homeowner of lot 72 and the adjacent property owner 71. Okay, so let me just give you an idea of what this would look like, these tax maps in relation to the lot number on the survey. And so let's pull up a copy, sorry, not on the survey, on the plat map. So see here how I've got a plat map here, which kind of gives you an idea of the relationship with the neighborhood. We've got our subject property here, and this is sort of like a better scope of the actual property and surrounding neighbors, better than the actual survey. So if you look here and you see lot 42, which is our subject lot, and down here in the corner here you've got number 72, and it has a double underline there. It's kind of small, but it's got a double underline, and this is all of the numbers that have a double underline under it is the actual parcel number. So if you're concerned or you're curious about lot versus parcel number, you will want to pull out your tax map, and I do have a class on how to do property research, and that'll teach you how to get into looking up tax maps. But this will show you the neighbors in relation to your subject property, and our survey actually deals with 3 different lots. We've got the lot on the left hand side, we got the lot on the right hand side, and we've got an encroachment back here on lot 31. So again, when you're looking at those recorded encroachment agreements and they don't refer to a lot number, they might be referring to a parcel number, which is these little numbers down here. 72 and 71 are the ones that we're talking about right now. So let's see, we're going to go back to the 72 and 71. And now we realize that this is the encroachment agreement that we've been looking for item C. So now we can go back to our survey. Okay, now we're back on our survey. And now we can check off item C, encroachment agreement document number, and now we know that we've got something that covers this. So now we can feel comfortable knowing that we can move forward with our transaction now that we have an encroachment agreement on one of these items. Now we go on to the next item that we need to worry about, which is item D, and let's go look at that other encroachment agreement that could possibly be for this particular encroachment. Okay, so here is our second recorded encroachment agreement, and this one is for the opposite. This one is for lot 41, parcel 71, encroaches onto lot 42, parcel 72. This is item D on the survey. So let's have a look at the survey again. Okay, so we've got item D, vinyl fence from lot 41 projects 1.0 into subject property. So we've got the neighbor lot projecting into our lot. So we need to look at lot 41 or parcel 71 projecting 1.0 into our property, which is lot 42, parcel 72. Okay, so here we have item D. Again, lot 41, parcel 71 encroaches onto lot 42. So this looks to me like we've got the right encroachment agreement, and if we scroll or we go to the next page here, we can see where lot 41, parcel 71 encroaches into parcel 72, lot 42. And we've got the same line right here. And then if we go back to the survey, you'll see how it kind of matches up. Okay, so now we're back on the survey, and what I want you to look at here is this line that goes down like this. You see, it's not the pink line. The pink line is the boundary. So this other dashed line here is the wall from lot 41. And see how it's beyond the pink line? This pink line belongs to lot 42. So if you see a wall here, then that tells the surveyor that it's encroaching. And then the space between this and this dotted line here and this pink line is the area that's actually the space that's encroaching, or the numbers. So when you go back to look at the 1.0 here, that's what that refers to. Okay, so now we've got two encroachment agreements that look like they cover C and D. So that's good. So you can check off C, check off D, that you do have recorded encroachment agreements for. So going back, we now know that after looking at the title report, there are only 3 encroachment agreements. One no longer exists anymore, and then the other 2 cover C and D. That means that we don't have an encroachment agreement for B, and we don't have an encroachment agreement for G and H. So now what do we do? So going back up here to B, and we look at the wood fence from lot 31 projecting 0.9 into our subject property. If we go to the survey and we look at B, lot 31, we're looking at this section right here. So now, because it is technically an encroachment, we now need to look at getting an encroachment agreement with the lot 31 neighbor. So what's involved in that is a process with getting an encroachment agreement, which I will cover in a separate tutorial. But just to let you know, the process involved with that, which I'll give a bit more of a detailed scenario, is that you'll have to ask escrow to draft an encroachment agreement, which they will do. An attorney will actually draft an encroachment agreement between lot 42 and lot 31 that would need to get signed into escrow prior to your closing. This is when that time frame that you put in your contract of how many days to cure an encroachment take place. So if you put in 10 days and your neighbor doesn't live here, lot 31 guy doesn't live here, he lives on the mainland or lives abroad, you might be looking at an extension to closing, or you may need to ask for an extension to that time frame, because it can be a lengthy process in getting an encroachment agreement signed. So first step is to get escrow to draft the encroachment agreement. Once they do that, it probably takes about 1 to 2 days, well, probably 2 days. Once you get that encroachment agreement back from escrow, then you'll need to either mail it or hand deliver it to the neighbor. And we like to do that with a letter, kind of like explaining what's going on, so that they're not, they don't get something in the mail and just toss it in the trash. You might want to send it certified. Probably the best way to handle it is to just go there and knock on the door, because you never know when they're going to get their mail, and if they put it into a stack of papers or whatever and they just don't pay attention to it. So best thing to do would be just to go to the neighbor and say, hey, we've got this encroachment, can we see if we can take care of it? Also, an encroachment agreement needs to be notarized. So this person, whoever lives here, is going to have to go to a notary to have it signed in front of a notary. Otherwise it cannot be recorded. So that's the situation with B. Now we go back to look at the other 2 here, G and H. These are encroachments into Niuiki Circle right-of-way. So if we go back to the survey, you'll see G and H are encroachments into the Niuiki Circle right-of-way. Anytime you have an encroachment into a right-of-way or a street, something to do with the city and county, you're looking at having to go get a variance, which is sort of like an encroachment agreement with the city and county. And you could just technically let it go, let the buyer decide whether or not they even want to go that route, because almost always the city and county will probably agree to an encroachment agreement, but within their agreement it will probably say something along the lines of, if at any time we need to have you remove your wall or fence or whatever it is that's encroaching, we have the right to tell you to do so. Normally you don't have that situation with neighbors. You pretty much have an agreement that the wall can exist, and that if you ever decide to rebuild, that you would have to abide by the boundary lines. But if the city and county were to ever come in and do something with the street, like maybe widen it or do something to it, maybe put some sort of an easement there, they have the right to tell you to take down whatever wall you have. And if you have quite a large encroaching wall or something, you're looking at a few $1,000s to have to remove it at some point in the future. It doesn't always happen, and it's very unlikely, but you can't just fall back on that. You have to like at least think of like the future and what could happen. It's if it's possible, it probably could happen at some point, maybe 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line, we don't know. But if you go to the city and county and ask for a variance, you're putting them on notice that it's there. If you don't submit anything to the city and county and they are not none the wiser, they probably won't they won't know about it unless they ever had to come out and put something there. They'd still be able to tell you to remove it anyway. So it's kind of up to you whether or not you want to go that route. If you want to get a variance, in my mind, you're setting off a red flag to the city and county that is there. If you don't tell them, they can still come and tell you to remove it anyway. So this may not settle too well with the buyer, but it's all about how you approach the situation, how you can explain it to a buyer. Maybe both agents need to really kind of rally together and help explain something like this to a buyer so that it's not necessary to have to go that route. But I do have instructions on how to file for a variance in another tutorial. Okay, so now that we have covered pretty much the survey, those are the last two things that you would need to do to complete your project here. And I think once you were to get an encroachment agreement for this and you were to get the variance approved through this, then you would have a nice clean situation here and you would be able to close. A lot of times the lender will go ahead, or sorry, escrow will go ahead and insure for the lender on things like this, so that the lender would fund the loan, but they are still considered encroachments and they're not insured for the buyer. So what that means is that the escrow company, title company, will go ahead and provide title insurance to appease a lender to get the thing to close, but the encroachments still exist and they're not covered under the title insurance for the buyer. So that can be a little bit confusing. If you do get a little confused about something like that, you're welcome to call and ask questions, but that's just how escrow works. And like I said, if you have any questions, you're welcome to ask. Okay, so that concludes the survey portion of this video tutorial.